Hey, welcome to Canada Life. Hope you are all doing good, where we help you navigate life in Canada. Today, we're diving into some important updates for international students applying to study in Canada in 2025. There are new rules and guidelines that could impact your plans, so let's break it down. Let's jumping into the video further delay. Today, we are going to talk about the new rules for international students in Canada. What 2025 applicants need to know. If you're interested in this topic, stick around until the end of the video. If your dream is to migrate to Canada, this is the channel you must follow. Then make sure to hit that subscribe button, and don't forget to share this video with your friends and family who are also interested in coming to Canada. And be sure to click the notification bell so you never miss an update from us. First things first, what's changing in 2025? The Canadian government has introduced new measures aimed at better managing the growing number of international students coming into the country. These changes are focused on ensuring that international students can integrate more easily into the Canadian economy and society, and that educational institutions maintain high standards. Hey everyone, welcome back to Canada Life, where we guide you through all things related to studying, living, and thriving in Canada. Today, I've got a super important update for international students planning to study in Canada in 2025. There are some major new rules you need to know about. We're talking about everything from working hours, study permits, and PGWP post-graduation work permit requirements to proof of funds. So, let's dive right in. Key changes for 2025 applicants include 1. Stricter admission requirements. Canadian institutions will now be required to demonstrate stricter admission processes. They'll be expected to ensure that incoming international students meet not only academic but also language requirements more thoroughly. This means students should be prepared for additional scrutiny on their English or French language proficiency, possibly needing higher scores on tests like IELTS, CELPIP, or TEF. This is mainly depend on the college or university and educational stream which you are going to choose. 2. Housing availability proof. One of the newer requirements is that educational institutions need to ensure that students have access to appropriate housing. With the rising cost of rent in major Canadian cities, this rule is meant to protect students from housing crises upon arrival. For 2025 applicants, some universities may ask for proof of housing arrangements before issuing a final acceptance letter. 3. Limits on work permits. In recent years, there has been concern about international students relying too heavily on part-time work to support themselves. Starting in 2025, stricter guidelines will limit the number of hours students can work off-campus during their studies. While part-time work remains an option, it's essential that students come prepared with enough financial resources to support their living expenses. 4. Focus on regional colleges. To reduce pressure on urban centers, the Canadian government is incentivizing students to consider regional colleges and universities outside of major cities like Toronto and Vancouver. Some regions will offer additional benefits to international students, such as faster study permit processing or special scholarships. This is a great opportunity for students willing to explore other parts of Canada. What does this mean for you if you're applying in 2025? It's crucial to start preparing early. Here's what you should do. Prepare for higher language proficiency scores. Make sure to focus on improving your English or French, and aim for higher than minimum scores on language tests. Secure housing early. Start looking for housing options even before you apply. Many universities are now offering assistance with this, so check with your institution. Financial planning. Work out a solid budget that accounts for the reduced working hours while studying. Ensure you have enough funds to cover tuition, living expenses, and emergencies. Explore regional colleges. Don't limit yourself to the big cities. Canada is vast, and studying in smaller regions can offer unique experiences and opportunities. 5. Reintroduction of off-campus work limits. Date: November 2024. Key rule. The Canadian government reinstated the 20-hour per week limit for international students working off-campus during academic terms. Previously, due to labor shortages, students had been allowed to work unlimited hours off-campus from November 2022 to December 2023. However, this rule has been reintroduced to help students maintain a focus on their studies while reducing labor market strain. Impact: students can still work full-time during scheduled breaks, but stricter enforcement of the 20-hour rule during academic periods will affect students relying on part-time work. This also ties into new immigration requirements, ensuring students have enough financial support to sustain themselves without relying heavily on work income. 6. Mandatory proof of housing arrangements. Date: August 2024. Key rule. In response to the housing affordability crisis in Canada, particularly in cities like Toronto and Vancouver, some provinces and educational institutions introduced rules requiring international students to show proof of housing before finalizing their study permits. The government has also been working with institutions to ensure they offer adequate accommodation options or partnerships with housing providers. Impact: students must secure housing in advance or work through their school's housing office, adding a layer of complexity to the application process. Ensures that students are not left without accommodation upon arrival, which has been an issue in the past. 7. Immigration consultants and admission fraud prevention. Date: July 2024. Key rule. New regulations were put in place to curb fraudulent admissions and visa applications. Some unscrupulous immigration consultants have been providing false documents or making fraudulent applications on behalf of students. Now, only licensed and regulated immigration consultants are allowed to provide advice and services related to Canadian immigration and education applications. Impact: applicants must be careful when choosing immigration consultants, ensuring they are registered and authorized by the College of Immigration and Citizenship Consultants (CICC). The rule helps protect genuine students from being taken advantage of by fraudulent agents and helps maintain the integrity of the study permit system. 8. Special initiatives for Francophone and regional institutions. Date: March 2024. Key rule. As part of Canada's broader strategy to reduce pressure on major urban centers and promote growth in smaller communities, incentives were introduced for students willing to study at regional institutions or in Francophone communities outside of Quebec. Some of the benefits include faster processing times for study permits and increased access to scholarships or settlement programs. Impact: encourages international students to consider smaller towns and regional schools, helping to alleviate the strain on major cities like Toronto, Vancouver, and Montreal. Gives students new opportunities to explore regions outside of Canada's major metropolitan areas and benefit from a less competitive housing and job market. 9. Changes in study permit processing times. Date: ongoing 2024 to 2025 transition. Key rule. In an effort to streamline study permit processing, the Canadian government has introduced new guidelines to fast-track certain applicants, particularly those from countries with low refusal rates or students accepted to schools in high-demand fields such as healthcare and technology. However, applicants from regions with high rates of fraud or insufficient documentation may face additional scrutiny, resulting in longer wait times. Impact: some applicants can benefit from quicker processing, allowing them to start their studies on time without delays. Those from regions with more complex application histories may need to provide extra documents and expect longer wait periods, so starting the process early is essential. 10. Provincial Assertion Letter. First up, we have something called the Provincial Assertion Letter. This is a new requirement for international students applying to study in certain Canadian provinces. What's it about? Well, some provinces are now asking schools to issue an assertion letter confirming they have space, housing, and proper resources for incoming students. You'll need this letter as part of your study permit application. So, if you're applying to study in provinces like Ontario, British Columbia, or Alberta, make sure you get this letter from your school early. 11. Weekly working hours. Next, let's talk about working while studying. A lot of you have been asking whether you can still work part-time while you study. In 2025, the 20-hour-per-week work limit during school terms will be in full effect again. This means you can only work a maximum of 20 hours a week off campus while school is in session. However, you can still work full-time during your scheduled breaks like summer and winter vacations. So, it's super important to budget your finances carefully, especially if you're planning to rely on part-time work while studying. 12. PGWP allocation by education level. Now, let's talk about the Post-Graduation Work Permit, or PGWP, which is one of the most sought-after benefits for international students in Canada. The PGWP allows you to stay and work in Canada after you graduate. Here's the deal for 2025 applicants. If you're completing a diploma program, you can get a PGWP that lasts for the length of your program, up to a maximum of 2 years. For degree programs bachelor's, you can get a PGWP of up to 3 years, depending on the length of your study. For master's and PhD programs, students will also be eligible for a 3-year PGWP. It's a great way to gain Canadian work experience, which can be crucial if you're looking to apply for permanent residency later. 13. Spouse Open Work Permit Limitations. There's also been a significant update regarding the Spousal Open Work Permit. As of 2025, only students enrolled in graduate-level programs, master's, PhD or specific high-demand fields such as healthcare or technology will be able to bring their spouse on an open work permit. This means if you're studying at the diploma or undergraduate level, your spouse may not be eligible for an open work permit anymore. This is a big change, so make sure you plan ahead if you're coming to Canada with your partner. 13. Language requirements for PGWP. Here's another important update. Language requirements for the PGWP. In 2025, students who want to apply for the PGWP will need to demonstrate a minimum level of language proficiency, especially in English. You'll need to take a test like IELTS and score at least 6.5 overall to be eligible for the PGWP. This is a new requirement aimed at ensuring that graduates have strong enough language skills to integrate into the Canadian job market. 14. Proof of funds. And finally, let's talk about proof of funds. This has always been a requirement for getting your study permit, but now, the financial scrutiny is stricter than before. As of 2025, you'll need to show enough funds to cover both your tuition and living expenses without relying on part-time work. For a single student, this means proving you have enough money to cover your first-year tuition and at least $10,000 CAD for living expenses. If you're bringing a spouse or children, that number increases. To wrap things up, the new rules for international students in 2025 aim to ensure a smoother transition into life in Canada and better integration into the economy. While the changes might seem challenging at first, they're designed to help students succeed in the long run. That's it for today's update. If you have any questions or need more advice on applying to Canadian schools, leave a comment below or check out our other videos on navigating student life in Canada. Don't forget to subscribe to Canada Life for more tips on studying, living, and working in Canada. See you next time.